What's up everyone, James here. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at this HyperReef controller by NICREW. The controller actually works with the NICREW HyperReef LED light that I have hooked up to my Fluval Evo aquarium in the house, and I thought it'd be cool to try out the controller and see if I get any sort of more functionality of the light, because at the moment there's just a couple of buttons on the actual display of the light itself where you can turn it on and off and set it to different things, but this supposedly you get more sort of variety in the way that you can change the colors and stuff. So I'm really excited to check it out. So without further ado, let's get to it. Alright everyone, so here it is. This is the box. It's actually a really nice clean box. Feels quite heavy as well, so yeah, it looks really good so far. Let's get it open and see what we've got inside. So it looks really nice and clean. You've got the instruction manual here that sort of tells you all the bits and pieces and how to install the controller onto the light, so that's really helpful. You have the controller that is really heavy, actually. That's really nice. It's nice sometimes when it feels heavy. So you've got the mount that is metal, and also I'm assuming that's so you can screw it to the wall or something if you wanted to, but I might just stick a piece of Velcro on it to stick it to my actual tank. To be fair, that's actually quite light, so it must have been that was the weight on it, but yeah, it looks nice and clean, very nice. And then inside you have just a couple of cables, oh, and some screws if you want to mount it to the wall. One thing I noticed is there is a USB port here to power it on, and I can't really tell yet from the manual. It says something about that you might be able to power it from the existing reef light that you've got, so I'm going to connect it and see what happens. If not, they don't supply a Type-C charger, so you would have to get one yourself. I think I've got a cable somewhere though. Let's get this hooked up to the aquarium then and see what happens. Alright, so this is the reef tank, and you can see there's the light. I'm looking for the outbound port, so there's two on the back here. I'll do a zoom in so you can see in a second. This is the cable that you connect to, so I'm going to just hook this up and see what happens. The cool thing about these lights is that you can dolly them off other lights as well, so you could chain these if you want, which is pretty cool. So yeah, let's just hook this up and see what happens. Obviously I want to trunk the cable free so the light instantly goes out. And it looks like the controller comes on straight away, so it's obviously powered by the light itself. So I might just sort these cables out and then we'll have a look at the device. Alright, so here's the kit. Sorry about the lighting, but yeah, apparently if you press the down button you can see the manual adjustments that you can make, so you can adjust the white and the blue. You can also set programs. You can use this mode, which is, you have a look, you can then set different modes onto the tank itself. You can also set the date and time, so here, and also the display. Right, so you can put it into screensaver mode, sleep timer, and also the brightness setting of the actual device itself. To get onto the different menus there, when you scroll through, that's obviously through the top, but then if you go back, then you have to tap the middle button. Sensitivity is a little bit off, but then you can adjust the whites or increase them, and also the blues and increase them. So if I now show you on my tank, if I now do the blues, I can increase the blue temperature, which makes it very blue in the aquarium. And if I go back, then obviously I can reduce the blues and just keep the whites. And if I do increase the white, that's at 100%. And if I increase the blue to 100%, there you go. So there's a few different things. When it's set to standard, it's set to 50% on each. So I'm gonna have a little play around to see what works well for my aquarium. I quite like the tank looking quite bright. Whether that affects the algae, I don't know, but we're gonna have a little play around, and I guess it's just trial and error really as to to what's going to work and what's going to look nice in the tank. Another cool feature is obviously the programs. There's a couple of presets already set in, but like if you click on here, you can see the tank goes dark, but then when you can sort of see what it's going to look like at certain points of the day. So obviously in the morning it starts light and then it moves to a darker, to the blues, and then there's another preset here which adjusts it slightly differently. So you've sort of got a full day mode effectively already pre-programmed into the controller, which is pretty cool. So yeah, it's a bit different because normally I would use a smart plug to control the time, so I might set it up so it's just on this and have a sort of day control, because it would be cool to introduce sort of like the light gradually for the corals so you don't shock them. It's better to have a more smoother sort of light gradual sort of thing happening as opposed to just instant intense light and then completely off. So yeah, I'll be interesting. I'm going to have a play with it. Obviously I'll give it a fair few weeks before I come back to the video, just to give it a good trial and error, but I think we're going to mount it onto the aquarium. I think it'd look quite cool there, to be honest. So I might get some sticky Velcro that I've got and just sort of mount it there, but yeah, sort of coming along nicely in my tank now. Alright then, so it's been almost 4 weeks now since I've had the controller set up on the aquarium, and I'd like to give you my thoughts on how it's been so far. In terms of build quality, I actually noticed that it was quite plasticky and it's sort of a bit flimsy, and one thing I did notice is when you push the buttons, it requires that they're not so sensitive really, and it takes a little bit of a firm push on them to get the touch sensitive buttons to actually sort of move across the menus. I would say that personally it would probably be cooler if either they were click buttons or if you had some sort of app that you could control with it. And that's the other point that I was going to go on to, is it would have been really cool if the controller actually had the ability to be able to control the light from my phone as opposed to just the control itself. Although obviously you get the functionality of the actual device, it's just cooler if you've got the ability to sort of change some of the settings or tweak them on your phone as opposed to keep walking up to the fish tank and coming back. It's not a massive deal, but it'd also be just a cool, nice addition to the device if it was to have that feature. So ease of use, it was a bit difficult to work out at first, getting through all the menus and navigating. Obviously I read the manual and sort of worked my way through, but yeah, it was just a little bit sort of confusing to start with, I guess, in terms of like actually working out a light routine that I wanted. And one thing I thought it set it all out, and then I woke up in the middle of the night and it turns out the light was on. And what I'd realized is that although you set, say you were dimming the light to the really dark blues for the evening and you wanted it to switch off, say at 11 o'clock at night, if you've got another timer set for the same sort of schedule set for say 6 in the morning, once the light is clicked off 11 o'clock, it then seems to run a very early version of the 6 o'clock start. So it would start at the very minor setting and then increase the brightness to whatever you've set it up for the 6 a.m. one. So the way that you would do it is that you have also a 0 at 6 a.m. or 5:55 say for example, and then you have your light set for 6 a.m. so you have like a 5 minute apart at the beginning. That took me a little while to figure that one out, but once I've got it, it seems to work absolutely fine now. It's been running like that for a couple of weeks now, so yeah, it seems to be really good in the sense of that. With the LEDs, the functionality of actually controlling certain colors is not there. All you get is to adjust the sort of the whites and the blues really. You don't get a choice of the reds, the greens or the blues. Do you know what I mean? Like you would some sort of LED lights that you'd get for a freshwater tank, like a plants one or something, but it does have the ability to change like little bits and pieces in terms of like how much brightness of the white that you want and how much of the blues you want, so you can sort of tweak the sort of the shades of color that you get in the light itself. Obviously the wall mount itself is an absolute heavy beast, but the device itself, as I said earlier, is quite light, which didn't matter too much. As I said, I just got a couple of pieces of Velcro and stuck them to the back of the tank, so it looks pretty nice and tidy there, and it also has a good sleep timer so the screen switches off. after a few minutes, so it doesn't have it just sort of blaring out and say wasting electricity. And it's also really cool because it does actually power off the LED light itself, so there's no need for additional cables or plugs, which I thought was really good. Programming wise on the device, I think you can program up to 4 different types of programs that you want, and then obviously you can select that from the main sort of menu to decide which one of those programs that you'd want to run a cycle. I guess as if you're experiencing like algae issues, or you've got very sensitive corals, you can then have them on a very different specific set of lights, and then gradually you could switch to a different setting. I guess it's to give people that functionality of sort of changing. What would be really cool is obviously if it did have an app or more functionality on the actual device itself, is having some more programmable settings and sort of maybe a little explanation as to what those would benefit in terms of the corals that you got. Maybe like this light works better with soft corals, this one works better with, you know, LPSs, something like that. It would be a really nice feature to have. I guess I suppose there's benefits to having apps and stuff that you would get these days as opposed to just the device, or if the device had more capabilities, I guess. I think in terms of function, it obviously adds more than what the light does, because like I said, the light has just got a few different features, so it does give you that ability to create a sort of a timer and not need a smart plug. And one thing I found out was obviously if you do keep the controller in a smart plug and then you start setting things as programs on your controller, as soon as that smart plug cuts the power, all the settings seem to get wiped away. So whether that's a thing, like if there was a power cut or anything, I don't know. So it'd be interesting to see if I ever do get a power cut in the house, if it just wipes all of my programmable settings, which I hope it doesn't, because it took me ages to figure out how to actually get a nice setting that works throughout the day. It would be cool if the programs, you could add more different, say, timings, because for me, I don't like my lights on all day, and it just means that like with this way I have to kind of set it so the lights are sort of dimmer in the morning, and then I have created a sort of a section where it turns off sort of late morning, sort of lunchtime period, and then sort of kicks in again sort of early afternoon. But you don't get enough sort of programmable slots to be able to do like very specific times, so you can have like 6 to 7 on and off, and then like it comes on again at 10 to 12 or something, and then off again, and then like 3 to 4, and then off again, and then for the rest of the evening type thing, and then have it switch off. You only get like 6 or 7 programmable little sections within the sort of the preset that you want to create. So I suppose adding a little bit more functionality would be cool, but it does the job in what it has already. Packaging wise, can't really complain. NICREW always do a pretty decent job of keeping their stuff packaged, and it comes in some really nice sort of sleeves and stuff. It was really good for that. Customer service wise, NICREW, I haven't had a chance to reach out to them or anything regarding the light, but I will be offering sort of some feedback, especially with maybe in the future version of this model having the capabilities to use an app, or you know, have some more functions on the actual device itself would be really cool. But they're always really great for feedback like that. They sort of appreciate it. Price wise, looking online, it looks to be is sort of late 30s, between sort of late 30 and 50 quid, so about 38 to 50 quid in terms of the price and wherever you get it from, which I don't know if it's worth it. Maybe the late 30s, I would say. If it was going up to about 50 quid, I don't know if I'd spend that on the actual controller itself for what you get maybe compared to the actual light. Yes, you do get a few added features, but is it 50 quid's worth of features? I'm not sure. I'd let you be the judge of that if you were to try it. Overall, I did like the device. I thought it was really good. It's nice to have that control, but as I said, I think there is a few sort of, maybe the build quality kind of lets it down a little bit, and kind of the ability to have long programs on it. But I do love the fact that I can create nice light routines for my lights, as opposed to just having on and off, which you get with a smart plug, for example. Like, it's all or nothing. So at least this way I can create a nice gentle cool light to start with, and then sort of increase the intensity throughout the day. And also when the light turns on, instead of kind of just flickering on straight, it kind of gradually sort of fades on, if you know what I mean. So I thought it was a really nice touch. And also when the light goes off, it fades off, it doesn't just click off, which I thought was really cool. So that is a really nice addition to that controller, which I was really impressed with. So I hope you liked the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Let me know if you've tried the controller in the comments below, or if you're looking to try something similar to this. I'd love to know. If you haven't already, head over to my social media channels so you can see what else I've been up to and some of the other products or some of my aquariums. It's always really cool to check out things there, and if you want to have a chat, you can message me there. And until next time, you stay safe.